Hello and welcome to History Time. In the past few weeks, I have been focusing on Chennai related aspects. Let's travel down south and look at some of the wonders that we can find in other parts of Tamil Nadu. You know, the world has got a habit of creating lists, and then they'll put together things like 7 wonders of the ancient world, 7 wonders of the medieval world, modern world, etc., etc. They'll never include anything from India except 1 or 2 things maybe. And that's because these lists are always made somewhere abroad. But if you look at it, India is full of wonders. Why 7 wonders? We can come up with 7,000 wonders, 8,000 wonders. Sometimes I think we have too many wonders in our country, which is why perhaps we don't bother too much with any of them. Today I'm going to take you to one of those wonders. Have you ever been to a fort called Thirumayam down south near Trichy? No? Then come along with me today and feast your eyes on this place. Thirumayam is between Trichy and Karaikudi, and it is just 21 kilometers before Karaikudi. You can't miss it. When you're driving down, if you look towards your right, you will find a huge rock, just like the Malakote in Trichy. Not a single tree growing on it, just bare honey-colored rock. And on top of it, you will find a fort. The outwalls of the fort spread all around the rock, and it is said that it encompasses an area of 40 acres. This fort was constructed in the 17th century by the Sethupatis of Ramanathapuram. That is relatively recent history. But what is inside the fort is what really makes this place a wonder. If you walk in, you will find 2 temples, one dedicated to Siva and the other dedicated to Vishnu. Let's start with the temple dedicated to Siva. This is the shrine of Satyagirishvarar. You cross a gopuram built during the time of the later Pandyas. Then you go in, you see several mandapams and all that. And finally, you reach the base of the rock itself. And there you have a sanctum to Lord Shiva known as Satyagirishvara. That is a sanctum that goes back to the 7th century, to the time of Mahendra Pallava himself. What is so great about Mahendra Pallava? Well, he was the first man to conceive the idea that you could build a shrine out of rock. Prior to that, all the temples in what we recognize today as Tamil Nadu were made of brick, timber and metal, essentially things that could get destroyed over a period of time. It was Mahendra Pallava, as he describes it in his own inscriptions, who was considered to be Vichitra Chitta, a man who had unusual ideas, who first came up with this concept. And therefore, this sanctum dates to his time. What is the proof that the sanctum dates to his time? Just outside of it, there is an inscription which is unfortunately half rubbed out by a later inscription of the 13th century. The old inscription states several details of Indian music. An almost identical inscription, and fortunately for us complete, is in Kudumiyanmalai, dating to the same period. And that is how we are able to date this sanctum as well. There are a couple of other indications to show that this belongs to the Pallava period. You have the 2 Dwarapalakas, the guardian deities to the sanctum. Today, if you go to a temple, you will find that the guardian deities are mirror images of each other. But in Pallava times, that was not so. And here you will find that unlike other places where they are 4-armed, they are just 2-armed. The one on the right-hand side rests his hand on his club or mace. The other one, on the other hand, is pointing to the deity with his hand and telling you to focus over there. These are very clearly Pallava period Dwarapalakas. And facing the sanctum is a magnificent Lingodbhava, Shiva emerging out of a linga, carved on the rock wall itself. These are all clearly Pallava period sculptures. Then you enter the Vishnu Temple. In the sanctum to the left, which is really the base of the cave itself, there is a magnificent bas-relief of a reclining Vishnu. Vishnu not just by himself, but on the serpent Adisesha, surrounded by a whole lot of deities. It is one huge scene envisaged by a master sculptor. Today, if you make an error, you can delete on the computer. You can cut, you can paste, you can copy, you can paste. Prior to the coming of the computer, we could use an eraser to rub out things. What do you do when you're sculpting on a rock? If you made an error, what would happen? There was no scope for error. The sculptor had to execute flawlessly, which is what they have done. They have executed an entire scene over there sometime in the 7th or the 8th century. It is mind-boggling, and we don't know who those people were. You just stand there and you wonder at what they have done. The Pallavas created the sanctum for Siva, the sanctum for Vishnu. Thereafter, the imperial Cholas endowed this temple. Then came the Pandyas, who created a few pavilions. In the 15th century, the Vijayanagar emperors created a lot more. Then came the Nayaks, who left behind their sculptures. Finally, in the 18th and 19th century, the Nagaratars, the Chettiars of Karaikudi and other places, lavished their wealth on this temple and created a lot of art and sculptures. Having wandered around this temple, we step out and we come to the temple tank. Usually, a temple tank is a square or a circle. Here, it is 8-sided and it is full of water. Can you imagine in this area in summer, it will be 41 or 42 degrees. But when you're standing by that tank, it is just fantastic. A cool breeze is blowing and the very sight of that water is cooling to your eyes. It's such a wonderful place. Thirumayam also happens to be the birthplace of the patriot Satyamurthy. More on him in a later episode. Let's take our leave of Thirumayam and look at other wonders of Tamil Nadu in the coming episodes. Bye for now.